y'all, Scott here. I went to a psychic and found out I'm gonna die someday, so I decided to do something charitable with the time I have left doing this whole life thing. I've started an organization with the goal of taking care of the 28 million copies of We Play everybody abandoned. It is a bitch getting funding for this. As the video game industry grows, so do sales expectations. Sometimes they're reasonable, sometimes they're Capcom expecting Resident Evil 7 to sell 4 million copies at launch. What? And when it only reached 5 million sold a year after release, it's seen as a failure to many. I mean, it's fair to expect more copies of a game to be sold these days compared to 10 years ago. Video games are played by more people than ever now, and the internet helps spread the word of the hottest new game releases. But then there's completely unrealistic expectations of how well a game will do. Publishers predict large sales numbers that frankly are too high, and are then disappointed by sales that are still quite good. Tomb Raider in 2013 sold 3.4 million copies in 4 weeks. That's really good, but not really good enough. While it makes sense to expect higher sales numbers as video games become more and more popular, what makes publishers so confident in these ludicrous predictions? Probably We Play selling 28 million. The list that all games strive to break into, the best-selling games of all time. Let's take a look at the top 15 as of 2018 and see if I can deduce why everybody refused to stop buying copies of these things. Now keep in mind, these are the best-selling games based on confirmed sales numbers and actual copies sold. No exclusively free-to-play games for us here, and games like Overwatch, while Blizzard has stated the game has over 40 million players, people can play the game for free on certain weekends, plus it's not a concrete Overwatch has sold this many copies. If it was fully confirmed by Blizzard how many copies the game sold, I'm pretty sure it would be on the list. Also, no mobile-only games. I mean, Angry Birds alone sold over 500 million copies, even when it cost 99 cents. We're keeping things to console titles, and hey, if they have versions on mobile, good for them, but no exclusives. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, a game also known as Scott's favorite Grand Theft Auto, is my favorite Grand Theft Auto. I'm not going to analyze what makes it so great to me because, honestly, it's probably just because it was the first one that I played. I never got far in the story at all. I would just conservatively play it until I said to myself, alright, it's time to jaywalk. But hey, I'm obviously not alone in my stance with San Andreas. It's an incredibly popular Grand Theft Auto, and the second best-selling entry in the franchise, moving a whopping 27 million plus copies. Now, why did San Andreas do so well? Probably because it came out at the perfect time. Think about it. Grand Theft Auto 3 and Vice City came out earlier in the PS2 and Xbox life cycles. San Andreas was the last of the three to release in 2004. It was a ripe time to release, as the developers really knew the hardware they were working with by this point. They were able to fully utilize its power and supply us with the biggest Grand Theft Auto yet. Plus, 2004 was the peak of the consoles at the time, having a big enough active install base, but being far away enough from the launch of the next generation systems. Either that or was the sex minigame. I don't think people flocked to stores screaming, "Where's your San Andreas aisle?" because of the hot coffee mod or anything, but the abundance of media coverage on the topic definitely gave the game more of a spotlight. When the Wii launched, people were saying, "This is great and all, but I can't ride a cow yet." We Play is a title every Wii owner has swapped spit with at some point. It's a bit of a companion title to Wii Sports. That game showcased the Wii Remote's capabilities in terms of motion control, while We Play focused a bit more on using the pointer functionality, whether it be through slaughtering ducks or this dream I swear I had once. It wasn't crazy well received back then, and even now, I just never see anybody talking about this one. However, I will maintain that while We Play ain't high-class entertainment, it has enough fun in it to warrant playing from time to time, at least back when the Wii was relevant. But really though, why did it sell 28 million plus copies? Well, it was $50. And it came with a Wii Remote bundled in, which usually costs $40. It was a no-brainer for Wii owners to pick this game up. Might as well, you nab a second Wii Remote and for only 10 extra bones you get a game thrown in as well. It was never seen as a game plus a Wii Remote, it was always a Wii Remote plus a game. Nintendo did this with other games, but Wii Play was bundled with the Wii Remote right when the Wii craze was just starting to rev up. This is one of the few, if not the only title on the list that wasn't bundled with a console. I think barely anybody bought because they actually wanted the game. It was a classic case of, why not? It's only $10 more. Duck Hunt's one of my favorite titles of any NES game, arcade game, Japanese toy, Smash Brothers character, Smash Brothers stage, and amiibo. You use the NES Zapper to kill 1 duck at a time, 2 ducks at a time, or clay pigeons if you're feeling extra not murdery. If you fail to pop a duck, you get the first true instance of cyberbullying. But that didn't stop it from selling a whopping 28 million plus copies. However, I'm gonna have to slam an asterisk next to that number. Duck Hunt contracted the dreaded Pack-In syndrome, and believe me, this ain't the last time we'll see of it on this list. Many people love this game, yes, but it sold so well because it was packed in with the NES the majority of its life. Pack-in titles laugh in the face of what being on the best-selling games list really means, because you don't know how many people own the game because they actually wanted to play it and because it's legitimately good, and how many people own it just because it came with the console. Also, Duck Hunt shared a cartridge with Super Mario Bros. Bundled in with NES systems for the longest time, which is undoubtedly the reason why both of these games remain so high up on the best-selling games list to this day. Oh shit, spoilers, Mario's on the list. This was a bit surprising to me. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim has already sold over 30 million plus copies, and it doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. To be fair, Bethesda made damn sure this game would be a bestseller. Skyrim was a hit at launch, and its name carries more value than I think the Elder Scrolls brand itself does at this point. I'm just saying, it seems like more people know of Skyrim than the Elder Scrolls. After many lost hundreds of hours of their life to Skyrim, the copious amounts of mods, the internet spreading word of the game, and its easy availability, I can easily see now why Skyrim is on this list, and honestly it'll probably be higher on the list in no time. There is some light pack-in syndrome here though. It wasn't an Xbox 360 bundle at some point, and if you want to count Skyrim VR being bundled in with some PlayStation VR SKUs, go for it. Black Friday 2009, everybody lined up at Target counters, slamming their hand down and yelling, "One bland and unoriginal Mario to go, please!" Alright, New Super Mario Bros. Wii is still pretty good in the grand scheme of things, especially considering it was only the second New Super Mario Bros. Game at this point. The series definitely hadn't reached pure fatigue yet. And with it being the first original 2D Mario title with 4-player multiplayer on the Wii, it had no problem pushing 30 million. It did insanely well. I mean, New Super Mario Bros. Already had a huge audience. You put it on the Wii, where many who own the console haven't played a Mario game since the NES days, and you have yourself a game that everybody owns at least 4 copies of. To be fair, pack-in syndrome somewhat strikes again, but it was only with select bundles. New Mario Wii wasn't a consistent pack-in with the Wii. But what other game is more suited to outdo New Super Mario Bros. Than New Super Mario Bros.? New Super Mario Bros. Was a revolution in the field of just doing the same thing again. It ushered in the era of retro revivals and showed just how much people still love 2D games. And they loved it a lot, considering much like its Wii successor, it sold 30 million, but outdid it just a bit. Similar to the Wii counterpart, New Super Mario Bros. Did so well on the DS due to the install base of the system and the audience for 2D Mario titles. The Nintendo DS, much like the Wii, catered to everybody and had a large following of casual players. Whether they be older or younger, I think they all thought seeing this game on the shelf that they couldn't go wrong with buying a new 2D Mario game. Again, very light pack-in syndrome applies here. Pokemon Red and Blue are some of the best-selling games of all time. No shit. Yeah, it was to be expected that Pokemon was going to be on this list. I mean, the entire franchise has moved over 300 million units. I think what's surprising though is that only one Pokemon title cracked the top 15 bestsellers, and at that, it's the first one, selling 31 million plus copies. Now, I'm not gonna act like I know much about Pokemon, but it's just a little surprising that no other title has gotten a bit closer to Red and Blue success. This was during the great Pokemon boom of the late 90s, so large sales figures are to be expected, but even the direct follow-up, Gold and Silver, was about 8 million shy of Red and Blue's lifetime sales. Now, one thing Red and Blue did have going for it was the install base of the console they were released on. The games were released incredibly late in the original Game Boy's life, especially here in the West. 1996 back in Japan, 1998 here in North America, and 1999 in Europe, a full 10 years after the hardware debuted. That's like a company releasing a Wii game now. Huh. Wii Sports Resort was the sequel to the game that only God knows if it'll be on this list momentarily. Utilizing the Wii Motion Plus accessory for more accurate controls that couldn't be possible with the vanilla Wii remote, Resort was an upgrade in almost every way compared to the original Wii Sports. It felt more like a game rather than a tech demo, with tons of different modes and locations to play in per sport. Speaking of which, it had a ton more sports, all with a tropical resort theme. Swordplay, archery, and the best thing Nintendo's ever done, the Island Flyover. Being a sequel to one of the most popular games of all time, plus being bundled with the Wii Motion Plus accessory and with Wii's for a while, definitely helped this game cross the 33 million mark. I just wish even more of the population got to experience this. Mario Kart Wii, the one I disliked and now retrospectively say, that wasn't too bad. It was just at the time it didn't feel like that great of an upgrade from Mario Kart Double Dash on the GameCube, the item balancing was jank, and it didn't really have a ton of new ideas. Now I look at it as a solid enough game, but it was the thing back in the day and has sold over 37 million copies. In my opinion, the reason Mario Kart Wii attracted so many people initially was the Wii wheel. After the casual Wii audience saw how much not bowling felt like real bowling, hearing how Mario Kart Wii was coming out and it included an accessory that would make not driving feel like real driving, everybody was like, man, we gotta try this out. After the motion controls craze died down though, Mario Kart Wii steadily kept selling well, probably because it was the most accessible home console Mario Kart out there. Also, pack-in syndrome. So many Wii bundles included Mario Kart, including the Wii Mini. I am sorry, Mario Kart Wii. Now we're talking. While it may not be at the top anymore, the fact that Super Mario Bros. Is still in the top 10 best-selling games list over 30 years after release says something about its impact on the industry. Of course, pack-in syndrome partially applies here, but it had to. Super Mario Bros. Was the definitive pack-in title that showed off just what video games could be, and with 40 million plus of these guys lurking in the wild, I think it's fair to say that it succeeded at being a good pack-in. And then PUBG sold 50 million. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is currently in the top 5 best-selling games of all time. Think about that. That feels pretty weird, but it definitely says something about the game's success. It initiated the popularity of the Battle Royale genre of multiplayer games, with the last man/team standing winning. That genre is totally in now, and totally won't be old news in 3 years, I swear. Pack-in syndrome, as there was an Xbox One bundle sold, but I really doubt that scratched the surface of its 50 million milestone. Wii Sports was the reason the general population fell in love with the Wii. Right when you boot it up, everybody went, oh shit, I'm the hand. I'm the hand! Well, it does have that classic pack-in syndrome as it came bundled with the Wii systems in the West the vast majority of its life. It was the driving force that got people to actually want a Wii. All the sports included were fun, easy to understand, and impressive at the time. Selling over 82 million copies makes these things less valuable than coasters, but it's still an impressive feat nonetheless. San Andreas had a good run, but then Grand Theft Auto V did this. The game released in 2013 for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, and had potential to die hard when the PS4 and Xbox One released, but Rockstar smartly brought the game to those platforms, plus PC. This helped the title maintain relevance, and alongside the constant updates to the online component, plus the mere fact the online component is wickedly popular, Grand Theft Auto V is still consistently in the top-selling games of the week list, with 95 million plus copies sold. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if it eventually hit 150 million. Excuse me, sir, you have 12 days to live. Huh. Excuse me, sir, you have to talk about Minecraft again. Yep, everybody's favorite Minecraft. Regardless of your opinion of the game, you at least have to admire how successful it's been. It gained traction even in its beta stages, and after it finally officially released in late 2011 and was ported to almost every conceivable piece of technology since, Minecraft has sold over 144 million copies as of January 2018. With around 74 million of them being monthly active players. That's nothing to sneeze at, and while I still don't know what all this is about, I respect it and everything it's done. But the overall best-selling game of all time is, are you f***ing serious? Tetris is the most well-known and iconic puzzle game of all time. Name a console, any console, it probably has a version of Tetris on it. But that's just it. It has a version of Tetris on it. You see, look up any list of the best-selling games of all time online, and you will constantly be face-to-face with the number one followed by Tetris, claiming that Tetris itself has shipped over 170 million copies. Well, no piss it shipped over 170 million copies because people are considering the entire Tetris franchise as one game, and thus justifying it being the best-selling game of all time. Here's my problem with this statement. Yes, there have been multi-platform versions of Tetris that are considered the same game, but on a different platform. Tetris on the NES and Game Boy is the easiest example of this. These are basically the same games on different platforms. But would you consider Tetris DS, Tetris Splash, Tetris Battle Gaiden, Puyo Puyo Tetris, or 3D Tetris to be the same game? They all have different visuals, sound design, development teams, modes, gameplay tweaks, publishers. I'd argue that some of these different versions of Tetris have more differences from each other than other entries in game series. My point is, I think it's kinda lame that the entire Tetris franchise is considered just one game in all these best-selling games of all time lists, while other series aren't. Yeah, Tetris Effect is fundamentally the same game at its core as Tetris on the Game Boy, but Wii Fit and Wii Fit Plus are considered different games on bestsellers lists. Are all games in the Dr. Mario series considered the same? What about Columns, Puyo Puyo, really any puzzle game? Is Tetris 2 a part of this statistic? I f***ing hope not. What about Tetris Attack? It ain't Tetris, but it's Tetris. I wonder what the people behind Tetris have to say about that. Jesus Christ, they've sold over 425 million copies of Tetris on mobile alone. Alright, I wanted to argue longer there, but that's my cue to wrap things up. So, what did we learn about the best-selling games of all time today? Well, a lot of them are on the Wii, and we didn't even see a Call of Duty title. After staring at this list for 2 minutes, I've deduced that 12 of these 15 games have been pack-in titles at some point, 5 of them are Wii games that sold well due to bundles, brand recognition, and fads, and Tetris being the best-selling game of all time is kinda garbage, but they decided to sell over 400 million of the non-free-to-play paid versions on mobile, so I guess I'll shut up. I hope developers actually understand that the majority of these numbers are unrealistic, and it's simply not bad for their title to not hit them. Yes, these are incredibly impressive statistics, but selling 1 million copies of a game should still be seen as a success in some ways. Yeah, that could mean a profit loss for the company, but that's 1 million people who wanted to play your game, and that should mean something. I wonder how the Wii Play developers feel about why people actually bought their game. They've got to feel pretty good because we have 400 copies of Wii Play being nurtured by yours truly. But coming back to the whole I will die thing, who's gonna look over my 400 copies of Wii Play when I'm gone? Pardon me, 433.